Welcome to Cubcast, a podcast where real guests share stories that inspire us through life's challenges. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the show. This episode is sponsored by Powerflight Aviation. Reach out today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are back in the Cubcast studio. And today is a little of a different episode, different perspectives. We're here with a very special person, a very selfless person that I met back in Thanksgiving, but also I knew him from the past, but we got to know each other a lot more. Welcome, Sim Shain, who actually is a EMT / paraflight. Okay, we'll get into it a little bit. We'll talk a little bit what he does and what he's doing. And he does amazing things. Simcha, how's it going today? How
Amazing.
You doing today?
So excited to be here. It's been a long time we've been talking about this. Seems like way before Thanksgiving.
Thank you for taking your time and taking your day out of this to make the podcast happen. Of course. But also, I know we were trying to make it happen for a while. Thank you for helping me coordinate and making it possible.
My absolute pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So before we get anywhere, why don't you tell us who Sim Shain is, who you are, I guess, growing up, where you started, and where everything started to take off and start your work.
Okay, so my career. So I'm a paramedic. I'm a fellow paramedic, is how I identify myself. People ask what I do. That's not how I make a parnassa, but that's what I am at heart. I'm a paramedic. I love to help people. I love to save people. It started when I was 7.
Wow.
It started when I was 7. I had my dad was an EMT and one of the founding members of Hatzalah in Lakewood, the first Hatzalah in New Jersey. And I used to watch him drop everything, leave our home, leave his business, leave the Bet Knesset, and he would go to save a life. And I said, that's what I want to do when I grow up, right? I never thought that I'd be able to integrate it with a livelihood, with making a living. But I knew when I was 7, somebody would ask me, what are you going to be when you grow up? I didn't say a police officer. I didn't say a real estate developer. I didn't say that I'm going to be selling diamonds on 47th Street or even flying planes, right? What I said I'm going to be is a Hatzalah member.
I guess we do what our father does in some ways, but right. I feel like at that young age, I don't know, sometimes it's a little different.
Right. Most people don't know what they're going to do in their lives. And I've had many roads that I veered on and I veered off, but my focus was always on trying to help people. And I love doing that and I love giving back. Nice.
So where'd that continue on now? You were 7 years old, you're getting older, now you got into this. Where did it start? Where did this start?
Right. So when I was 20 years old, I was sitting with my mentor. Then it was Rabbi Chaim Abadi, who passed away just about 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
he was a rabbi in Lakewood. Then he was a young businessman. He was going through his own struggles. He had cancer, and we were talking. And I told him, my dream in life is I want to become an EMT and I want to help people. And he said, so when are you going to do it? And I said, I guess eventually. He goes, well, why don't you do it right now? What's holding you back? And I said, nothing. And I called up a local squad, and I literally left a message on their voicemail. And I said, I want to join. They called me back 10 minutes later, and they said, when can you come down for an interview? And metal only bends when it's hot. And I said, if I'm in the zone, I'm in the moment, I'm going to do it right now. And I said, I'll come down right now. And 10 minutes later, I was out there building. 10 minutes later, I was accepted. And 3 days later, I started my EMT course.
Oh, wow.
So that's going back to 1993. Became an EMT. I got married in 1995. 1996, I joined Hatzalah in Lakewood.
Even before I was born.
Right. And then came September 11th, 2001. I was in Lakewood. That's really where my trajectory really changed. I was in Lakewood. We got to notice that the buildings were hit. We called Hatzalah in New York City and said, what can we do to help? We were a small organization then. We had 3 ambulances, and they said all our ambulances we sent them to Manhattan. We can use an ambulance in Flatbush and one in Borough Park. So we did that. So we came in with 2 ambulance crews. I came in a separate car. We got 1 ambulance crew in Flatbush, 1 in Borough Park, and then I happened to have been a member of Flatbush Hatzalah at that time. I jumped on the back of an ambulance and I went into New York City.
So you came from Lakewood to go to New
York City?
Wow.
Lakewood into Brooklyn to New York City. By the time I came into New York City, the buildings were already down, but it was dark and dust all over the place. And we probably spent the better part of 8 hours treating people who had soot in their eyes and respiratory distress. Most of the people that I treated were police officers, but while I was there, I got to integrate with and meet many Hatzalah members from all over the New York City area. And one person who I happened to meet, almost in passing, was somebody named Shlomo Zakheim, Steve Zakheim. Shlomo was a legend in it.
Similar to my name, I guess.
Right, there you go, Zakheim. And Shlomo had owned a very, very large ambulance company at that point called Metropolitan or MetroCare, and he brought many of his ambulances into there. Unfortunately, when the buildings collapsed, 14 of his personnel were killed.
Wow.
And after that, so about a couple months after that, there was intifadas going on in Israel, and Israel was concerned that if they would go into war, all their EMTs and their paramedics and their doctors will all go up to the front line in the reserves. And who's supposed to cover the cities? Who covers Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and Bat Yam and Cholon and Ofakim, all these cities? So his thought was that why don't we start taking Hatzalah members from all over the world? We'll get them trained in Israel. And if something, God forbid, happens, we're going to bring the members there and the others can go to the front lines. So I happened to have lucked out and I got onto the first team. Team 1 of the HEART team, which is called Hatzalah Emergency Ambulance Response Team. I was part of the first team that went to Israel with Shlomo and some other friends who I've bonded with, and we've become close for the last 25 years. And that's where I got to meet Shlomo. We became friends. He was definitely a considerable, a number of years older than me, but we developed a bond, started working together. He introduced me to a camp called Camp Simcha. Right, you've heard of that, right? A camp for children with cancer, medical, physical disabilities. He brought me there one summer, and the interesting thing is he actually had his own private jet.
Oh, wow.
He had a private jet. It was a Lear 31. It was a light jet that he didn't actually need for business. I thought for years it was for business, and his kids corrected me and told me it was absolutely not for business. He used it for chesed. He put an oxygen.
I know you from Camp Simcha, but I wasn't on Camp Simcha, but I just heard so many good things about how you help out there.
Right. So he introduced me to aviation, his own private jet, and then he used to send me. I became a paramedic in 2007, and he would send me and other paramedics all over the country with people who needed to get to specialty centers or needed to get to a special hospital or a rehab center or a special doctor, and they didn't have the means, they didn't have the finances to be able to pay for it. And he would send his plane, and we would volunteer as paramedics to go along.
Oh, that's so
cool. Right, and then as far as Camp Simcha was, he brought me there as a paramedic as well, and he introduced me to helicopters for children.
Yeah, I saw that. That's what I remember, that people were on helicopters in Camp Simcha going for a ride. How long is that ride?
Right, so we do it every year. There's about 500 children that go through camp every single year. They have 4 sessions, 2 regular, which is cancer, 2 special sessions, boy, girl. And we go there every summer. He introduced it to us then.
You know how to fly or no?
No. I just go as as part of the med crew to get safety crew to get people on and off the helicopters. You're talking about putting children who are in wheelchairs, ventilators, children who are visually impaired or blind. You name it, they're there.
I'm familiar with it from Kizikars because we would fly on the planes. They would fly in planes and bring all equipment. So I guess the same thing with flying, even for 10 minutes, it's still every minute is...
It's literally a few minutes, but think about getting children off, putting the next ones on, some of them with a ventilator. Sometimes we send a respiratory therapist to go along because God forbid something happens, when they're up in the air. But that's what they do, and he realized that everybody loves aviation. Yeah. How many people do you know if you even get an opportunity to get onto a helicopter?
I haven't gone on a helicopter.
Right, you see? But so we have to go.
Yeah, I do.
All right, next time. This summer, we're going to helicopter.
I got to come visit the camp.
There you go. Cool. Actually, I think we're going to be doing it for the Special Children's Center.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're doing a Special Children's Center. So I'll let you know what the date is. You come down to Lakewood. We'll put you on a helicopter. Nice. But it's just unbelievable. And you see kids who come off all the time. You know what they say? For 5 minutes, I forgot that I was sick.
Oh, wow.
Right? Because it's so exhilarating and it's so exciting. And many kids, and I see them when they go off on the buses in Lakewood. We do the medical screening for Camp Simcha. And I always try to go to the kids, especially the ones who have been there before, and say, like, what was your number? What did you love about Camp Simcha? And everybody has their own thing, but I will tell you, 80% of them say one word. What is that? Helicopters. That's right. Because you're there for 12 days.
It's something that you don't get on a regular.
Right. Most of their parents never get an opportunity to go on a helicopter, and Shlomo recognized that people are fascinated with aviation. So fast forward to 2012. As I mentioned before, Shlomo lost 14 of his personnel at Ground Zero, And while I was only there for 8 hours or so, Shlomo was there for close to 30 days. He would come in every day helping search at Ground Zero to see if survivors and then unfortunately victims. And unfortunately, he developed a 9/11 cancer.
Oh.
And he was sick. He was in Sloan Kettering, and believe it or not, his cancer cleared. They cured his cancer, but the chemotherapy wreaked such havoc on his lungs and destroyed them that he didn't even have the ability, he didn't have the time to get onto the lung transplant list. And unfortunately, he passed away on the first day of Rosh Hashanah in 2013. He was sick for about 11 months.
So most people, they have commercials if you're in the area and you had, like, God forbid, someone had cancer.
So he got that. I've unfortunately lost a number of friends who had 9/11 cancers. My friend Banish Mendel, who actually worked for Shlomo, he was his partner. Yankee Meyer, Rabbi Yankee Meyer, he was the founder of Misaskim. He also had a 9/11 cancer. Gershon Sontag. Many people, unfortunately, have gotten sick, and many people have died as well, unfortunately. But about 2 weeks before he passed away, so about 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, his wife sends me a text, Faye, and she says, "Come to Sloan. Shlomo wants to speak to you." So I said, "Okay." I get into my car, I go straight to Sloan, and Shlomo says, "Take my jet." And I said, "Okay, where am I going?" Because he used to tell me that all the time, take my jet. And usually I'm flying to Mayo Clinic or Cleveland or Florida or LA. And I'm like, and he goes, "No, take my jet." I said, "And do what?" He goes, "And go change the world."
Wow.
I didn't even process that he knew his life was over.
Wow.
He was just trying to set it up that the chesed should continue in aviation. And he said, "But don't forget the chesed. Don't forget, it's all about helping people and giving back." And he passed away Rosh Hashanah 2013. And I was in a dark place at that point because I never in a million years dreamed that he would die. He was larger than life. He used to fly with kids to the Bahamas to go swimming with the dolphins. He would do special trips for all over the place, all over the world. I flew with him to Russia, to Israel, as much to the Bahamas, to Florida, to California, you name it, so that he could put a smile on somebody's face.
That's amazing.
And he wanted it to continue. And I didn't take his jet. I told the family to sell it. It was overwhelming to manage a jet charter company. But I took his vision. And in 2014, I opened up an air ambulance company. Because that was the direction that we were going to take right then and there.
So it wasn't called anything yet. You just did it randomly.
2014, I started with an air ambulance, and I was waiting to see how it was going to evolve. And then in 2016, we did a name change, and we opened up Paraflight. Initially started as air ambulance, and then it evolved from there into other opportunities. As I mentioned before, Shlomo's lungs were destroyed by that, and Shlomo had actually introduced me to a young man in Camp Simcha. I don't know if you ever knew him. You ever met Yochi Ruby? Yochi Ruby was a young...
I know a lot of people by face, maybe not.
Right. So Yochi Ruby was a young boy. He was in Camp Simcha. He came there when he was like 7 or 8 years old. He had a liver and kidney transplant. He had something called interstitial kidney and liver disease. He got transplanted when he was like 8 years old. And then when he turned 18, the same disease that attacked his lungs, it attacked his liver and his kidney attacked his lungs, interstitial lung disease. And the quest was to go find him a lung. And I flew with him and his parents.
That's the thing,
right?
People just replace lungs.
Yeah, he had a bit of a challenge because he was sick when he was 8. When he was born, he actually weighed 20 ounces. So 1 pound, 4 ounces. So he probably looked like the size of a sandwich. He was tiny. So he never, from when he was like 8 or 9 years old, he didn't grow. So he was very, very small. He was very, very small, and he really, every time we'd go to the transplant centers, I said, he really needs a kid's lung. But because he was over 18 when he got sick with this, he's not eligible to get a child's lung. And he had also other challenges with antibodies and things like that. We went to 11 different centers. I flew with him and his parents and others all over the country. We went to Pittsburgh and to Cleveland and to Yale and to Duke and to Baltimore. We went everywhere, and everyone said no for 2 reasons. One of them was because he had his challenge with his antibodies. He had a very rare blood type, but because they couldn't figure out how they're going to give such a little guy a lung. And that was it. We kept on going. 11 centers turned them down. And then one day I get this opportunity. Somebody mentions to me, we were servicing a hospital in the Bronx called Montefiore Medical Center. And they called me in for a meeting. And I come in and they say they're opening up a lung transplant program. And they want to know if we can service transplant teams. And I said, well, if we can service air ambulance, it's just a jet that's flying. I think we can do it. Yeah, I think we'll do it. And I said, did you say you're doing lung transplants? I said, I got the craziest story. I said, we just came back yesterday from Pittsburgh where they just turned this kid down. What can you do to help? And I literally take out my phone. I say, this is a boy. And we've been traveling with 11 different places. Everybody turned him down. And the doctor says, well, why did they turn him down? So I said, well, he has an issue with his antibodies. And he goes, so we'll give him dialysis before transplant. And I said, well, they also said he's too small. He can't get a child lung and he's not eligible. They said, well, what if we find a small female? Like, that seems like a good idea.
Because female might be a little smaller than...
Look, nobody ever thought about that. 11 other centers didn't, right? And his parents were prepared to go to everywhere, Texas, Pittsburgh, and move there until he got a lung.
I guess that was a test of running all over and finding something when it wasn't working out. But really it worked out. But something I want to understand and talk about is that sometimes we don't realize that we have the ability to breathe and actually take a breath without even realizing it. So before we continue, I guess, think about it when you guys hear the story, is that when you're thinking right now, you have a lung that's working properly and you don't have to do what he's doing. You don't have to go to 13 different places and find a lung because your lungs are working properly. So let's take a second and realize that we have lungs that are working.
I thank Hashem for it, because it's the one thing that's interesting, that our heart and our lungs work 24/7, even when we're sleeping. We don't have to remember to take a breath, right? Exactly. It just happens automatically and we take it for granted. And when you see people who are connected to oxygen tanks or connected to machines to help them sustain life, we should really be stepping back and say, appreciate that we have our health.
Exactly.
And appreciate that we have our mobility. Everything that we have, we have to thank Hashem for. So that was something special. So we ended up flying for them, and then we realized that there's opportunity out there to be able to help others, and we started bit by bit to start expanding.
Was your first situation, you're saying?
Right, that was our first center, and over the years we've evolved. We're in multiple different states where we're able to help people, and we fly not only lungs, but we do hearts and livers and kidneys and pancreases.
So the lung you thought about it like, oh wow, maybe we'll do lungs, and then.
So this center that we went to was Montefiore in New York City that accepted Yochi, by the way. Yeah. So you remember that I told that they had, they said, this is what we can potentially do. I said, can I bring Yochi here? And they said, yeah, you can bring Yochi tomorrow. And I brought him with his family, and he got listed. He got listed in Montefiore in the Bronx. And unfortunately, he didn't get his lung. He passed away just around this time, around Shavuot time. He passed away around 6 years ago. And he didn't get his lung, but I speak to his parents all the time. And I have a big picture of him up in my dining room. And his mother says, and we all strongly believe, that she has no doubt that he lived 2 more years because he believed that he was going to get a lung. Imagine, we used to leave every center and he'd be like, so now what am I supposed to do? They just said, no, what's my next step? But he believed, and everybody also did.
If you have if you have the strong mindset and a strong will, then it will happen.
Correct.
It's also, manifestation is such a big thing.
Right.
So we have to really, our words are also so powerful. So if we say negative things, it's going to pull us down.
Right.
So
if we look for the positive, we're going to find the positive. Exactly. And if we look for the negative, we're going to find the negative. So that evolved, and I had this, as we started to build more and more transplant centers around the country, and we started doing corporate charters as well, flying people, we recognized that there's something called an ESAT market, right, for urgent flights. It might not just be for an organ, but it can be for somebody who has to get to a funeral, or somebody who's sick in their family, or somebody has a business emergency and they need to fly from their office in New York City to Dallas, Texas, and they have to get there very, very quickly. Or this is in the middle of the night, at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the next flight is not out until 7 or 8 o'clock. When everything moves.
There's always emergency that someone needs.
So we realized that there has to be a better mousetrap, a better way than literally sitting on the phone or just typing out emails at 3 in the morning. Is somebody awake? Can you please do it? So I had this epiphany one day, and I said, if Uber can do it, we can do it, right? Uber has a way to send a message out, and I met with a friend of mine who was a developer, and I said, I want to build an Uber, but instead of having cars on there, I want to be able to have jets. And we did it. We started first strictly as organ. We opened up we took a URL, it's called organflights.com, and we built it, a small thing. We had about 30 or 40 operators on there, and we would transmit these trips.
So you can't really get a private jet just on the fly like that, no?
Not as quick as that. Not to be able to send out a broad request. Yeah, you can pick up the phones and call, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, who's going to pick up? Right, when you need an emergency. So we leveraged technology, and now we use it not just for organs, but we use it for medical flights, for patients. We actually fly patients who are listed in multiple centers. So when they get the phone call that the liver or their heart or lung is ready to be transplanted for them, even if they may be, let's say there are people who live in, as you know, Florida, and they live in New Jersey or New York, right? And if they're listed in New York and now they're in Florida, they need to be able to get to that hospital within 4 or 6 hours of the request. We can help them with that. So we have a whole division set up for that. And then we do corporate. We fly business executives wherever they need to go, recognizing that the most valuable commodity that if you can afford to buy it back is time.
Yeah,
right?
I saw one of your videos. You're talking about some of that stuff.
Right. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. Right. You can't say, you know what? Let me bank an hour from today and I'll use it tomorrow. At the end of the day, 14. That's it.
Could be a 12 hour. 12 hours really instead of a 4-hour flight. It could take 4.
Correct.
I saw that video.
Right. So that we meant is that many people spend more time going to and from the airport and waiting than the actual flight. Right. If you were flying, right. If you think about it, if you wanted to fly to Cleveland or you wanted to fly to Detroit or Florida, you have to drive to the airport. Takes you an hour to get there. You have to be there an hour and a half or 2 hours before the flight. 3 hours. Okay. Just so you know, the flight to Cleveland is 1 hour. So you already spent 4 hours. Okay. You already spent 3 hours, an hour plus 2 hours at least, plus getting on the flight. You spent 4 hours on 3 hours on going into a 1 hour flight, and you don't get that time back. So you're right. You have to reach a certain threshold of success or have the ability to do it. But sometimes even for an emergency or somebody has a funeral, they have to get back for a parent's funeral. We had just one 2 weeks ago. Somebody was landing in. He was coming from the West Coast. And he had to get to his I don't know if it was dad's or his mom's funeral in Florida. And we literally had a helicopter waiting when he got off the plane. Wow. Flew him from Newark Airport to Teterboro Airport and got him onto a plane, and he was able to make the funeral. Otherwise, and that was on a Friday. Otherwise, they would have had to push the funeral to Sunday.
Yeah, I heard a situation recently. Someone had to push funeral from Thursday to Sundays.
Right. So, those things happen. Yeah. And we've flown patients from all over the world to get that burial. We flew somebody from New Zealand to Israel, and it actually happened. The flight was supposed to take off the day after Israel went to war with Iran.
Wow!
So now we got stuck. We were in New Zealand, and the plane was already there, and it was Saturday night for us. It was Sunday afternoon over there, and I remember Saturday morning when I got the notice that they went to war, and we're like, what do we do now? And we had to wait till after Shabbat. And then we got them onto a plane. We actually ended up flying them to Singapore. And from Singapore, we took them to Egypt. And from Egypt, Zaka had to take them. You always
find a way. There's always a way.
Correct. Right. As Shlomo Zaka used to say, if it's difficult, we do it. And if it's impossible, we just try harder. Because you're right. There's always a way.
I have a question now that we're talking about the struggle of finding ways. Throughout this process since you were 20 years old, starting it, and until this day, when do you go through a struggle? I want to know the struggle that was very difficult. Were you able to pull through, and then looking back, it helped you through your mindset and going forward? I don't know.
That's a great question, but that happens every day. And what we think for us almost becomes routine, right? Because we've created and built redundancies and backup plans of those, that we always have something there. We definitely have our struggles. In the middle of the night is always the toughest one, right? Or think about holiday weekends, right? Or think about Super Bowl weekend. Nobody thinks about that. Super Bowl and Masters, and now the playoffs in the basketball. So many planes are being utilized by people, right? So that when you need a plane now, no, it's being used for the Super Bowl. Thousands of airplanes around the country, right? And these take place over weekends. So many events that take place that we always have to be prepared for. Storms,
even Thanksgiving,
winter, during Thanksgiving, many people are flying, right?
There's a lot of traffic,
right? And it means that, and Thanksgiving there may be pilots who are off, so now you just have less, aircraft in the pool to be able to utilize. That's why we cast this wide net by having a few hundred operators on our platform, and that hopefully when we send out the request, at least some of them will be available. And what we have also done is...
Can they skip the line? If, let's say, there's a lot of traffic and they can't get to taking off because I know there's a line?
The answer is not can we do.
Oh, you do?
We file, it's called a medevac or a lifeguard flight, and we cut the line every single time.
Wow.
I'll tell you something interesting. So we file this medevac flight. So as you're right, I don't know if you ever watch on FlightAware or Flight Radar 24, and you can see planes will line up, right? Even if you're going down the turnpike and you're watching planes on approach into Newark Airport, and you can see them spaced out about 60 or 90 seconds apart, and you can see sometimes if the night is clear, you could see a dozen or 15 planes lined up, but if there's a medevac flight filed, they actually cut the line getting in, cut the line getting out. We actually had a trip a couple of weeks ago. We were going from Puerto Rico. We were flying a heart from Puerto Rico to Baltimore. Very long flight, almost close to 4 hours of flight.
Wow.
And on the way, literally like an hour before they were scheduled to land,
Baltimore. Isn't it on like a time?
Yeah, correct. You have about 4 to 6 hours for a heart. And they were like really pushing the envelope on this heart. And they were about an hour out from Baltimore Airport where they were scheduled to land, and for some reason, I don't know all the details, but the airspace was shut down.
Wow.
Okay, the air traffic control shut down Baltimore, Reagan, and Washington Dulles airports. They shut them down, and now we have this heart in a box that needs to get to a hospital in Baltimore.
Otherwise, it's a waste.
Otherwise, it's a waste. It's somebody's life on the line. What do you do? And the pilot actually got on and he said, you need to make sure that you have a runway open for us because we have a heart on board and we need to land. And there were a lot of back and forth phone calls that went on with the powers that be, and that flight landed.
So they opened the space just
They opened the space to allow that one plane to land with the heart, because that's what we do.
Quick break over here. This episode is sponsored by Powerflight Aviation, a company I truly believe in. Some people say that time is money. I disagree. Money comes back, time doesn't. Whether you need a private jet, a helicopter, a medical flight, or an emergency charter, Powerflight Aviation is there 24/7. Visit their website or contact Sim Shain at 732-330-4400 and reach out today. Now back to the show.
That's what we do.
So you're doing things that are really helping and saving people. And I guess you get a big zechut, you have a big power from doing these things.
We try. We definitely try to help people.
How many planes do they have?
So in our network, so we don't own any of the planes. We broker them all out, and we have about 4,000 planes on the network right now. About 450 operators, about 4,000 planes in the pool. Now they're not always available.
But they don't always take off from New York.
No. These are planes that are just running or going about and doing their things. They're booked for regular charters, right? But sometimes, we might need a plane in Texas, in Houston, and they might happen to be in Houston, Texas right now.
Where's your power flight? Most of the people they're all over? Or
they're all over, yeah.
Just so or what is it?
No. We're in like 5 different states.
Oh, wow.
We're in 5 different states for organs, and we're all over the country and all over the world for charter, for corporate charter, and for medical flights. So we'll fly anywhere. It doesn't really matter. With our network, we can always find a plane. Baruch Hashem. We can always find a plane.
So I see you sometimes work as a medic on the planes. So how do you manage, I guess, doing that, and I guess like family life? How do you?
Well, if you recall what we said before, remember what Shlomo said, don't forget the chesed part, right? So the chesed part is about giving back. So when I fly with a patient on a plane, whether it's on a private jet or on a commercial flight to take people to Israel, people who are unwell or people who have to come back here, I don't charge for my time. We also don't mark up any cost for for a funeral, a levaya flight, or an air ambulance flight. We just give it at our absolute cost.
Oh,
that's what we do. That's our way of giving back, and we still do through the Zakheim family. We still do helicopters every year in memory of Shlomo. We do that in Camp Simcha. We do that in Lakewood. We do also do special trips for children. We take them on special trips. Children who are well. We say, tell us what you want to do. You want to go boating. You want to go skydiving, and whatever you want to do. You know Joe Wolfman?
Of course.
You know Joe.
Yeah,
so
Joe, yeah.
You know where I took him last year?
It's the best.
Skydiving. Yeah, you didn't see the video?
It didn't go right. It went wrong, no.
Well, it went right. He broke both of his feet. Did you know that?
I heard that.
I didn't know until 2 weeks later when I was by the. So what happened was, I took him skydiving. It was his dream in life. He wants to go skydiving, and it gets very complicated because when you go skydiving, you have to be able to lift your legs as you hit the ground. So we found this place We were looking for years, literally years, trying to find
I
it.
honestly want to go skydiving, but I don't think it's such a good idea.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. We'll take a chance, you know. What's the worst? Break both legs, right? I'm just kidding. But yeah, so we actually went skydiving, and I took him, and we got a video of the entire thing.
Oh, wow.
And 2 weeks later, they showed it by Yaakov Shweki here when they did when he was doing that big concert outside he does every other year in Deal. And they showed that video of somebody pushing past his boundaries, right? And finding something that's uncomfortable. With a smile
and like good energy.
Yeah. So he lands that day, just going back to that. So Joe lands, just me and him there, and I'm videoing it. And so what happened was they put this harness by his feet that they were supposed to pull up right before he hits the ground.
But it didn't work?
I didn't know anything, right? So we go running as he lands, and we get him up, we put him back in his wheelchair, and we take him back. And then 2 weeks later, as we're about to literally wheel him onto the stage to greet Yaakov Shweki, and his mom says, you know, he broke both feet, right? I said, what are you talking about, when? Because I said, that day, his adrenaline was running so high that he did not know it. He didn't feel anything. And until like a day or two later, he said, you know, my feet are like been hurting me since then. And they took him for an X-ray, and they realized that he broke both of his feet. Small breaks, but I asked if he had any regrets. Right, any regrets? He goes, absolutely not. He said he would go again.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But not even just taking people skydiving, but you went on Yella, this trip that we went on in Thanksgiving. We took a trip from New York to Israel. There were some people that came from other places, but it was just so nice to get together and see people that are dealing with other situations in their life. And for me, you know, last year and a half, I was dealing with I had a leg injury, and it was just very difficult. And when I was going on this trip, I wasn't sure about it. I was like skeptical. Once I knew that you were going on the trip, I was like, okay. I was like calm. I was like, okay, Paraflight will help if
I was excited to go along with you, Ike, as well. And I will tell you that this was, I think, last year was my 6th trip that I did along with them. And it's 12 days of taking young adults who have some sort of disability, a medical disability. And I'll tell you this, that Israel is not extremely ADA compliant like you can find in other places. So as you know, there are hotels and stores specifically that just have steps. They don't have ramps like we do. We're in many ways spoiled over here in the United States, because you don't find that even over Europe. You don't see it, but the United States really pushes for it. But so the entire trip has to be modified and geared to be able and tailored to that. I mean, I remember you went on, they did a zip lining and all that stuff over there that they set up because Israel has it set up for military personnel who get injured. So they should still be able to do it. So those people came out there. Remember, it takes them hours in the morning to set it up, and people are zip lining and going up on trees. Yeah, in the forest, right? Yeah. In the forest to do it. But that's what they do, to find things that can accommodate. You know, we've gotten zip lining in the past as well. You know, so it's really something special.
But I realize, like, in the times where it's serious, a lot of times you try to bring humor, you try to bring laughter and enjoyment, and I think that's your name, by the way. Simcha comes from that. You have happiness.
Thank you.
So
we try to do it. Takes the edge off. You know, sometimes people are in a stressful environment, and everybody's very serious. Sometimes just taking the edge off.
You like to bring humor, and it just gets us to be more relaxed and chill. So I think that's something that really, I guess, helps, not even for that trip, but I'm sure on your Paraflight or another situation.
People are going through some of their toughest days of their lives when we meet them. And it's something that we always have to recognize and appreciate, that sometimes people aren't well. And as I mentioned before, I'm a paramedic. Sometimes people say things to us that may be perceived as hurtful, right? I came out to help you, and like, why are you raising your voice or saying something? We always have to recognize that they're in pain, that they're uncomfortable, right? Think about, you know, if you stub your toe, right? You knock your toe into a wall, and someone says, hey, what's up? You're like, I don't want to talk to you right now, right? Because right now I'm in pain. And if you step back for a moment and say, it's their pain talking. It's their discomfort talking. It's their struggle talking. There are people who are suffering with illness for so many years, and we're just there for a small period of time, you know, whether it's 1 hour that we're interacting before we take them to the hospital, or it's 12 days that we take them on a trip to Israel. But it's challenging. It's difficult when somebody has to get, you know, we have to go down the aisle chairs with people. They have to sit in their seat, and for the most part, many of them are not going to move for the next 12 hours until they get off the plane. And all of it, everybody else we take it for granted, right? We don't want to be stuck in a middle seat because we don't want to climb over somebody, right?
That's a good
What
point,
about the people who can't climb anyway? They can't even get out of their aisle seat.
For me, I need the aisle seat, and then if I went into the, let's say, window or middle, it's just impossible to get out.
Right, correct.
So I think that's something cool we have to really appreciate, because we have that. A lot of people have the ability to get up and run around and not think about it, travel and not care.
Exactly.
So that's something that's important. But now you're talking about how this little struggle of some people going through. So this question, I like to ask it because it's an important question. It's part of the podcast. What is something, if something is going through, if you're going through something that's difficult or hard, or even someone's going through a similar challenge than you, or maybe it's somebody else, or maybe even the people that you're having on your flights, or people that you interact with, or any other issue that you're dealing with, how do you deal with it? What kind of advice would you give the people listening that need advice going through these challenges?
So I'll tell you, the way I look at it is we all have our challenges. And sometimes we can do things about it, and sometimes we can't do anything about it. The one thing that we can try to work to control is our reaction to it, right? Because we're not changing what happened already, right? So if somebody got hurt, or somebody fell, or somebody even spilled something on you, right? So you're sitting at a wedding and somebody dumps a whole thing of soup. Hopefully it's not too hot and it's cool soup and it's all over you, right? So you have a choice, right? It's done, right? I feel terrible. I dropped a whole thing of soup on you. Now you can say, dude, you didn't see me? Or you can say, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
If it was you,
and I have to get cleaned anyway, right? Don't worry about it, right? And we might not always even believe it. You don't have to believe it. But you just have to say it, because sometimes you say something in a moment of frustration or a moment of anger, and 10 minutes later you wish you could take it back. But we can never take our words back. So we can either be a hero or we could be a zero. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm not judging anybody. I'll tell you a story that happened like 10 years ago. My son had just gotten his driver's license, and I'm sitting in my house, and my youngest son comes running in. He says, Daddy, Aaron just got into a car accident in front of the house. He backed into another parked car, right? And I said, okay, is he okay? He's okay. One big problem, though. There was a cop sitting right in front of him as it happened. So I said, okay. I go down the stairs. I remember I stopped on the front porch of my house. And I said, Shane, this is what I talked to myself a third person. I said, Shane, you have 1 second to make a decision. Hero or zero. That's it, right? Because what happened. He backed into the car in front of a cop, a parked car. What should I tell him? What am I going to tell him? You didn't see it? Oh, that's really going to be helpful, right? Or what were you? Oh, that's very helpful. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to be the coolest dad out there. And I come walking out, and he's like pacing the driveway because he knows I'm coming out. And I go with him. I literally give him a hug. I said, I'm so grateful that you're okay. And I was so grateful that he was okay. And then I go over to the gentleman whose car he hit, and I see there's some damage to it. And I said, if it's okay, I'm going to pay you cash to take care of that. And then I go over to the police officer, who I happen to know, right? Because I've been a Hatzalah member in Lakewood for a long time. And I said, hey, you have to give him a ticket? And he goes, no, I don't have to give him a ticket.
If you come in yelling and screaming, the guy's going to give him a ticket.
And I want to tell you that to this day, my son remembers how I dealt with his car accident. And hopefully, he'll pay that forward, because there's definitely going to be times in his life, right, in everybody's life, that they wanted to be frustrated, that have every right to be frustrated, right? But if they can take that moment for 1 second and take a deep breath, that's all you got to do. Take a deep breath and count to 10.
Anything. That could be with
anything in life, any struggle, any frustration. It's our reaction. I believe that's the one thing we can control, is how we react to it.
Our mindset also comes together.
Can't always change the outcome. We can't always change what happened, but we can always change and it's work. Don't think it's easy. Many times we have to fake it till fake it till you make it, right? But just come up with a reaction and say, okay, what happened happened, and now we're just going to deal with it.
It's like, it reminds me of myself, like getting and injuring myself on the floor. Like, it's either you continue and you say, okay, I can't go back in the past because that's not going to help me.
Right.
And I think we have to just move forward, think in the future, think of what we can do now.
Right. I agree. You're 100% right.
And that's something that we have to try to do our best for that, because we're not perfect. We can do our best to.
Right.
This is why we're on this podcast, to inspire the people that are dealing with day-to-day struggles and have pain, have hardships, so they get to take that with them and try to become their best. Right. But it reminds me of my own car accident. When I got into the car accident, I'm like, oh my God, what my parents are gonna kill me. But once I realized I was in pain and I was injured, it was like, okay, this is a serious moment. It's all about life and death. We have to just make sure we're good, and that's all that matters.
Right. You're absolutely right. It's the mindset.
Yeah. Panicking is not gonna help.
Right. Now, sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we panic and we have to
yeah.
take a step back and say, okay, let's try to work our way through it. What can we correct now? Let's correct. What we can correct, let's accept that we can't correct it. Right? And if we could fix it at a later date, let's try to do that too. But it's about, I believe it's always about the reaction. Anything you do, whether it's in business, whether it's in family life, and anything else that you do, it's always about the reaction. When somebody's married, it's about how you react to one another. When you have children, it's how you react to them. Right? And when you have a business partner or a business relationship with anybody, when something is not always going great, it's that reaction. That's what people judge you. That's what they look for, right? How do they deal with stress? They want to know, right? How does somebody deal with something that's not going their way? Are they looking for solutions, or are they looking for problems? Are they looking for ways to fix, or are they looking for ways to break?
So if you find that, I guess, the positive light in things and move in the right direction. But is there a time where you got into a situation where it was very hard and like you somehow got through it? I don't know.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time. I was in it was a story I think we spoke about earlier about Eli Beer.
Yeah.
Right? Eli Beer, I think he was on your show.
Yeah, he was on my show, exactly.
Right. So it was midst of COVID. It was a very rough time. Many people were sick. Many people passed away. My dad was actually very sick. Spent the whole Passover in the hospital, like really, really sick. And Eli Beer developed COVID in 2020 around Purim time, right after Purim. And he went into the hospital, and I called Mark Gerson.
I didn't even know this until yesterday. I was looking at Instagram, and all of a sudden I saw the video. I guess the phone listened to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it does all the time.
And I had no idea that Eli Bear's flight was actually with you. I didn't know that.
Right. So Eli Beer was sick with COVID. He literally was through the whole Pesach. And
by the way, we had him on our podcast, and he was on, I think, episode 8 it was, where we had Eli. And if they want to go and look back at the story before we actually go deep into it, they can actually understand a little bit.
Right. Okay. So Eli was a friend of mine. Anyway, it's called
United Hatzalah.
Founded United Hatzalah, over 7,000 volunteers, the largest volunteer EMS organization in the world. Very close friend of mine. When he went on the ventilator, I had called Mark Gerson, and I said I'm going to pick him up when he's better. And I got a phone call after Pesach saying, "Hey, let's go get Eli home." Sheldon Adelson, as you know, big supporter of Birthright, big philanthropist who passed away a number of years ago. Sheldon sent his plane, and I was privileged to be able to fly as a paramedic. They couldn't even send people from Israel. I was really the only option because I was his close friend, and I was a paramedic, and myself and a doctor were able to go.
Eli's a close friend with everybody.
That's true.
Like he treats everyone the exact same. It doesn't matter who you are. He loves you.
Right, but nobody can get out of Israel.
I'm sure you guys are good friends.
We are very close friends. But nobody was able to leave Israel. Because if you did, when you come back, you have to go back into quarantine for like 2 weeks. But even when I flew back, I went into quarantine and for like 12 hours, and then I flew back with him. But in any event, Eli calls me up and says, because FaceTime calls me, and he says, come take me home. We were both crying on the phone. And I said, I'm coming to get you. And I called up Sheldon Adelson's director of aviation.
Some people didn't know if he was going to make it or not. It was very scary.
It was very scary. He said goodbye to his family. That's what he did before he went under. And when we were back, we were on the plane and we were talking about it. And he said, I can't believe I missed Pesach. I miss Pesach. My children, my grandchildren, my family. And I said, Eli, right? He would say, if there was ever a time for a
Pesach Sheni,
this was the one. This was the one. And
Passover already passed over.
Right, there you go. Passover passed over. And he did Pesach Sheni. So, the reality was, and he continues in his mission because he realized as weak as he was, and I remember he told me.
Better than ever these
right?
days.
Stronger than ever. I remember when we were flying back and he told me, I don't think I'm going to fly as much. I think I'm going to try to stay around. I was like, I know you, Eli. You're not staying around for 1 minute longer than you have to because that's what he runs around all day, fundraising to make sure that they have enough money so they're able to save so many lives.
I guess God gave him another chance for October 7th. They needed him the most at the time. So I think that he was better than ever after that. So gave him more strength.
Without a doubt. That's what it is in life. I think we have to look for opportunities to help each other and look for opportunities to react with what happened, right? Yeah. Like just now, we were recording, right? Yeah. It was actually the second time that one of the cameras went off in the middle, and we had a choice, right? We can either say, forget it, or we could say, you know what? it's just what it is. We're just going to make the best of
Exactly.
it, and we're going to record again, and that's why we did. So the cameras may be off just
It's
a little
It's
bit.
annoying. It takes time,
Right,
but
yeah.
it's like, okay, I'm
Yeah,
taking up
right.
your time, my time.
No, but you did it with a smile. That's it. There's nothing we could control. What was done, right? It didn't, for some reason, one phone
all we
went
can
dead.
do is go in the future and
Right.
fix what we
Correct.
can mess
Exactly.
with. That's
The
it.
only things that we could control
And
is our
Eric
reaction.
Bear was the one who continued pushing. Could have given up, but he
Right.
decided to keep
Yeah.
moving forward. And we all have to continue moving forward, even if the struggle comes in our way. Sometimes for me, I have my own struggle, but we're out here trying to inspire and go according to our mission, because sometimes our mission sometimes is thrown off. We got to keep going. And I said the other day in one of my posts, like, sometimes there's a detour. We got to just continue with that detour and go along, because God sometimes wants us to be in a certain place at a certain time, to go through certain situations. As you said, you've seen people go through pain, and you've seen people deal with situations, and you've seen it all. And I guess that's something that can help us through our pain. It can make us even stronger, like Ellie and ourselves. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing all these beautiful things, and keep doing the amazing things you do every single day.
You as well. Keep
saving
inspiring,
lives.
and you keep inspiring people. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining, and
of course.
only the best.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching an episode with Cubcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.